viewpoints or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyAccess.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Dolphins fans, time to get insight on your favorite team with your favorite reporter with an Expos hat. Sports Illustrated's Alain Poupart in our EJDconstruction.com Miami Dolphins report, exclusively on a Big O radio show.
All righty. Yes, sir. Let's talk a little Miami Dolphins football with our EJDconstruction.com Miami Dolphins report. And don't forget to call my guy Eric, 305-433-4843, Dade in Broward County, folks. Custom home construction, major home remodeling. Call my guy Eric, 305-433-4843. Mr. Poupart, how was your trip to Houston?
It was very nice. It was business. Well, we were there to watch the Dolphins and the Houston Texans practice, and that's what we did. And
catch a rock show. Was there a rock show in town to catch?
No, it was just dinner at night.
That's it.
Yeah, nothing. It was not. Yeah, it was not a leisurely trip. It was nothing like going to Europe with the family in July. This was about business.
Okay, all right. I was in Cannes. I snuck in, a little Tesla. It happens. Sometimes you're working, and poof, there's a rock concert in town, and you kind of enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, but they were early mornings and not necessarily terribly late nights. So,
yeah. Right. Good stuff there. All right. So, what did you think overall of the team's performance? I know the whole thing with the Teron Armstead thing, and then Brandon Peely, kind of soured the ending of the whole thing. It looks like Peely's all right, correct?
That's what it looked like. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me preface my answer by saying that. Omar and I went out to do double coverage for alldolphins.com. Omar focused on the defense going against the Houston offense.
Tolerate Omar for 2 more days? You couldn't get away from Omar for 2 days?
I can tolerate Omar a lot better than I can tolerate you, my man.
Jesus Christ.
Don't set me up like that.
Damn, bro.
That's too easy.
Omar for 2 more days? Jesus. Okay. All right.
You done?
By the way, does he snore, or did SI pay for 2 rooms? What's the deal?
We had 2 rooms.
Oh, okay. All right.
Don't worry about it. So as I was saying, Omar was focusing on the Dolphin defense. I was focusing on the Dolphin offense until the last period where everything is on one field and they take turns. So what I can tell you from the Dolphin defense is mostly Omar's observations. Obviously, we talked and he told me everything that happened. And then from the Dolphin offense standpoint, I saw basically everything. And there also were times I have to say, and this is kudos to the Dolphins and the setup that they have, that we see everything very clearly that we want to see. In Houston, there were a lot of times where we're at field level with a whole bunch of players who are not involved in the play, standing between us and where the huddle is, and they're going in the wrong direction. So a lot of times you're basically going like this, trying to look through players to see exactly what happens. And there are certain things that you might miss.
You basically want to tell the Texans PR that they suck and they gave you terrible seats, is what you're saying, and terrible views.
That might be a little harsh, maybe a little harsher than I would say, but it wasn't great. Let me just say overall, it's not a great viewing vantage point.
Not a great setup, unfortunately.
No, it's not a great setup.
Okay.
For the media. It's good for the fans because they have stands where they can see the first field. Not great for the media.
It's a real bitch that people don't realize, because I realize it because I've lived it with you. You know what I mean? People don't realize we used to have access. Like, we used to walk around the whole field and all that with Jimmy and stuff. And Jimmy was a hard ass. Mm-hmm. And yet you would think with all that, he gave you the best access I have ever seen in my life that a coach, outside of literally being in practice, which, as you know, 20, 30 years ago, that existed in our business, that there were still teams that would allow certain media members to be there even throughout the entire practice. They just couldn't talk about what they were watching, but it was great educational stuff that you're actually watching because you're really watching the meat of the matter. Now you can't do that shit because you can't even trust anybody, but it's got to be a bitch for you, for a guy that's been in it so long. And I've experienced it too, that you see where you came from to how limited the coverage is now. And
yeah, no, that's no, and then the whole thing of like, there's certain things you can report, there are other things you can't report, and you're like, is that really going to matter in the grand scheme of things at the end of the season? Come on. But it's life in 2023, and then like the Texans allow you on field level, which is cool, except again, the vantage point isn't there if you got people blocking your view. This is why being able to sit in the stands is much more preferable. And if the action's far away, you take out the binoculars and you can zone in. So, having said all that, you asked my overall impressions of the offense. I would tell you it was better than it was against Atlanta in the joint practices. So there was that. And again, yeah, the Armstead injury overshadowed everything on Thursday.
How are you deciphering right now forget the first two guys because it's freaking obvious. But after that, how do you break down the rest of the receiving core?
Yeah, the more I look at him, the more impressed I am with him, and that's Braxton Berrios. To me, clearly stands out as the guy I would say is going to get the third most snaps. Beyond that, I can see the Dolphins.
He's the only guy really that is a complete opposite complement to the two freaks you have on the outside, actually. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about him, that he's a different type of receiver that exactly fits what you want to do in the middle of the field, because Chosen is really more of a backup on the outsides.
He's an outsider.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So go ahead. So you got him at 3. What else?
And then I could see a situation where Izukama and Robbie Chosen also get used. Not quite as many snaps, but depending on the matchup, you could see certain games, for example, if they feel that they should attack the opposing defense with speed, have Hill and Wall in the slot, and then have Chosen outside with the other one, and then you have 3 burners on the field if you want somebody a little bit more physical to attack maybe a DB who's got size limitations, and maybe Eric Izukama gets some playing time there. And then at other times, it's going to be Hill, Waddle, and Berrios, who just gets open and catches the ball. I mean, there's nothing not to like about the guy. And, I mean, Cedric Wilson's probably on the roster in case of injury.
And the money.
Yeah.
The money. I'm sure they hope to trade him because they hope for a couple of freak injuries or something, and somebody desperately needs a cheap receiver, actually, at this point. Then you move them, because you probably can take like 2 to 3 million off of it and trade the rest with him, like they did with Tannehill, that they took a little bit of the hit when they traded Tannehill because they took a little bit of the money, if I remember correctly, right?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
So you could, in a perfect world, they'd love to unload him. I think they're going to try to, because that'll open up a roster somewhat. If not, that's going to give you what you just said now. So the top 2 guys, you got Berrios, you got Chosen, and then obviously the contract you got to carry. So where are you going with the rest?
And Eric, he's your 6-1.
Okay.
That's your 6. Right. There's nobody else who makes the roster. I can't see anybody else.
Craycraft.
Yeah, but who do you dump?
No, it would have to be Chosen's the only one, or Cedric, that you have to do something with Cedric, So
yeah, but it's a hard. I'm not sure about the Dolphins eating.
Oh no! I'm not expecting them to eat it. No. I'm saying if they find a trade partner, that's what they're going to be desperate to do. They'll move them for like anything, I think. At this point, they just want to get a 7th or a 6th if they can, and then they have to still take most of the money, and then they still get a competent receiver. I think their problem is showcasing. They need to showcase him. That's what they have to do.
Yeah.
You got to find somewhere in the second half of this game and in the third game, I guess, in the second half, where you showcase him and okay, hey, anybody need a wide receiver? And here we go. Because actually, there's been some shit. Didn't Detroit now actually go through a scare? Jameson Williams suspended,
and then that's some Mims. They just went injured.
And the other kid, that's their top guy, he just injured an ankle and everything in practice. So not that they need a receiver, but that shit happens and it turns on a dime. All right, running back room. Will Gaskins make it? Basically, it's the other four, I would imagine, right?
The battle is for 4. If they keep 4, I'm thinking that's because, again, between Gaskin, Savon Ahmed, and Chris Brooks, who I like a lot, by the way, I'm not so sure. I'm not. He's different, and he's not looked out of place once. I would have zero issue if he became the 4th. And he also gives you a little something different from Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., and A-Chain, who clearly are the top 3.
Can I run something by you? He's big enough. He's big enough to keep as a 5, and then you did let go of Lovett. So if something happens to your starting fullback, maybe he kind of helps you and fills in a little bit there and kind of helps you in a pinch. So he has that flexibility that he can help you in short yardage. He can be a backup fullback. He can kind of help you in different ways. I don't know. How big is he on special teams? That's the only thing I haven't really noticed.
I'm not sure. And I mean, he's a bigger back, but I'm not sure he's fullback big though. I mean, I was thinking,
fill in. Guys.
No, but here's the thing though.
Pinch.
Here's another option if Ingol's out for a couple of games or so, is they go the H-back route.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it would be another thing that would make sense. So I don't think this would necessarily have to have so going back to the halfbacks, to me, 3 are locks, and then I could see any sort of scenario. Gaskin as a number 4, Brooks as a number 4. The most surprising to me, the more I think about it, would be Ahmed as a number 4, because while he's more explosive than Gaskin, he's kind of a duplicate of A-Chain in style. So I don't know if it's redundant a little bit to keep both of those guys. And I could see a scenario if they want to keep more players out of the positions where maybe they keep 3 halfbacks and they have 2 or 3 running backs on the practice squad that they can elevate every week.
Oh, I'm the only problem is if they play that kid again this week in the second half and he has another half, you're not going to be able to hide him. Somebody's going to take him. And somebody's going to pick up the Brooks kid. I'm with you. I like that thinking on the Ahmed. I never thought about it that way, that he's kind of a duplicate of A-Chain, and you've already committed to A-Chain. I mean, it's a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
And he looks the part anyway. So it's all right. You're not going to be carried. Savon has done a really good job that he really understands the offense. Actually, you're the one last year that said Salvon over Gaskin at that.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but to me, once they drafted A-Chain, it's kind of like, okay, they kind of either they've cooled on Ahmed or they want somebody with a higher ceiling.
Right. That's why Brooks and Berrios are kind of the same thing in the conversation we just had, that Berrios is just a different player, and that's why he really complements what the other guys do. And then I think he's going to be a real safety blanket for Tua. And at the same time, Brooks is completely different than all those other guys. And he brings a little bit more punch to the situation and short yardage and those kind of things. He might help out. Different. Yeah.
No, and if you remember last year, the Dolphins signed a rookie free agent running back, Zaquandre White, where a lot of fans were like gung-ho about that guy. And there was never a time in training camp where I was like, oh yeah, this guy's got something. And then Chris Brooks, I told you about Chris Brooks, like in the offseason program. He just looks the part. He looks like he belongs there, and nothing has changed my opinion about that.
No, he's done a nice job. He's looked really, really good overall. Okay, so the blessing, I think, actually on the Armstead thing is that he's already been there's always been a lack of reps for him in practice as it is. So Kendall Lamb continues to kind of put the Dolphins hopefully in a position that they weren't in last year. Last year, you didn't know who the hell they were going to. You didn't think that there was any kind of stability whatsoever. Lamb feeding off of the end of last season till now has kind of looked at least, competent. So I think the positive is that he now gets this work over the next 2 games. Well, over the next 2 games, because I'm sure Armstead's not even going to play after this injury.
No, I don't. I never thought he was going to play anyway. Now I know he's not playing now. And if everything you want to know about how the Dolphins feel about Kendall Lamb, he didn't play in the preseason opener. That tells you, right. And it was not injury related. And Mike McDaniel said the day after, 2 days after, we know what we got in him, and that's your guy, and he has looked apart to where if Toronto's going to miss some games whenever it happens, and unfortunately, his history tells us that there will come a time. The Dolphins do look like they have a solid answer there with the big question the offensive line is left guard, obviously.
I had some guy, in the media. He's kind of in the media, I guess, and I didn't want to waste my time. We just idiot stuff. It's kind of trolling stuff. And he's like, well, Lamb's been on 4 teams in 4 years. And it's like, if you know the history of football, linemen are really odd. They don't always hit. Sometimes they don't hit on your team because it takes them a while, or it takes them the right system or the right coach. And there's a history in this league of guys that float around for a couple years and all that kind of, and we've seen guys on our team that have that have left and gone other places, and they finally found, Stella found their groove, that kind of shit. And so I didn't want to start trying to give an education, to the dude, but lineman is kind of an odd thing, and I would never count out a street free agent lineman until you've seen him completely fail, because sometimes under the direction of other people, it just changes. And maybe Kendall Lamb has kind of found his way here.
Yeah, and also correct, unless I'm severely wrong, this isn't a guy who got cut like 3 times in the middle of a season. Like, if I'm not, again, unless I'm severely mistaken, like he plays a full year with the team, and then sometimes you move on, and it could be as simple as a coaching change, and the offensive lineman likes a certain style of offensive lineman, and Kendall Lamb doesn't fit that style. Well, then we move on, which isn't necessarily an indictment on Lamb. It's just he's looking for a certain type of player. Now, obviously, this is not us saying that he's an all-pro, but he's certainly serviceable.
Right. That's it. In a league with no linemen,
yeah.
I mean, brother, go read the Jets.
Every half the team in the league, that's their biggest issue.
3 of their 5 positions are questionable. You know that, right? 3 of their 5 positions on the Jets, like, they have no idea, and they're waiting for like a 39-year-old Brown to come back by game 1 to come back and play, and they have no other tackle. Their center's a disaster. It's like, and let me tell you, Calf Rogers from the 20th century won't be able to outrun people like he used to. Okay.
No, and they still don't know what they're doing with Mekhi Becton is
oh no,
he's there, but
he's done.
But they do have Tomlinson is very good, and Vera Tucker is very good. So they have 2 very good
guys, but it shows you it's not a Jet thing, it's not a Dolphin thing, it's a disease almost everywhere, bro. Almost everywhere. There's only like 2 or 3, 4 teams maybe that can say, yeah, we got a solid 5. And then I don't know, do you have backups? Because okay, you have a solid 5. They may not even have those teams. There are a few that have a line may not even have any backups. They may be worried about one injury, and it could be all hell breaking loose for them too. It's dude, the state of offensive linemen, it is bad. Dude.
Well, then you can blame the college game for what they've turned into with the craziness with the passing game. And if we're going to stay in the AFC East, Buffalo's biggest question mark's the offensive line too.
Right.
Just
exactly. Now, here's the crazy thing. Okay, so they were a disaster last year in a way, but they still did actually an all right job once they found Jones and Shell hung in there. They kind of did a serviceable job, and they kind of got through it. It wasn't like Tua was running for his life. Okay, so now you've got a Kendall Lamb at left tackle. You've got Wynn, who can also play left tackle to back up, so he's like your 3rd string. Okay, so now you got Wynn, Cotton, Eichenberg, and Jones for that left guard spot. And I'm sure one of them will be a depth for Cotton's look. By the way, Cotton looked really comfortable on the right guard spot. I don't know if that's his thing or what, because I've seen him more right guard than left guard. You tell me. But anyway, you've got a plethora of guys that maybe you can find something out of here. And then the other three guys are fine. So are you technically in a much better shape from starters to depth on this O-line than you were last year, including having the same system and the same guys leading the way?
They are much deeper than they were last year. I don't think there's any question about that. And I'm with you that this offensive line has, I mean, people have dumped on it bad for the past 3 or 4 years, and I'm not sure it's ever been totally justified. And then last year was the same way. Last year
they did a serviceable job, dude.
Okay. Serviceable, yeah, that's a good word. It was okay.
It wasn't terrible. They weren't running. Your backs were averaging 4.5 yards. The head coach admitted he didn't run enough. Tua, when he got injured, it's because he held on to the ball. I've said that from day one. I didn't even blame it. It's not a Jesse Davis whiff of a couple of years ago and a rib shot. Okay, that one you can blame flat out on the offensive line and can't blame it on Tua. But the concussions and hanging out of the ball, bro, that was on Tua. That's not on the – you can't expect the offensive line to block for 4 or 5 seconds. That's on you, dude. Once you start doing 4 or 5 seconds, the O-line is clean, bro. It's at the end of 2.8 seconds, they did their job. Period.
No, I agree with you there. And look, the offensive line, I don't think anybody's expecting it, even a best case scenario, to be top 5, top 10 in the league. All it has to be middle of the pack.
Right.
That should be enough. I mean, obviously it would be great if the Dolphins could have the Frisco or the Eagles offensive line. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But there's not that many to go around.
No, I know. It's you, and look at it. And so I think they're doing a serviceable, because I'm trying to walk people off the ledge on the O-line. I think it seems like you are in the same boat with me. Like, yo, man, go look around 32. This is not such a bad situation. Now, the key is really you need Armstead to stay healthy, because that's when you really are your best, because it just brings this calming effect. It's a domino effect one way or the other, right? Mm-hmm. Destructive one way, calming in the other. It's weird.
And if you look at the games where the pass protection was really a major issue last year. It was what? It was the first Jets game, the Minnesota game, the Houston game in the middle and what's the common factor there? Armstead wasn't in the lineup.
Right.
I mean, he makes a huge difference. And unfortunately, we're all going to have to accept the fact that he's a guy who's got a reputation for, unfortunately, not being able to avoid injuries. So we're going to have to basically hold our breath on a weekly basis that he doesn't get hurt.
Maybe it's an unfair question because we still have 2 games to play. Good, Agude, and Miller. What's their futures? Who sticks? Who doesn't? Why?
I don't believe I had any of them on I did a roster projection 3.0 on alldolphins.com last week. I don't believe I had any of them on my 53. Why? I mean, I think they're all capable of handling some type of backup role if called upon based on what we've seen. Problem is there's guys in front of you.
You're intrigued but not convinced because they've all teased,
Correct.
but not been convincing. I got you.
And that at every position, I'm asking myself, okay, so who do I cut? The one who's got the best chance based on who's ahead of him, to me, probably would be Miller. Because Channing Tindall, I know he had 9 tackles against the Falcons, but I'm sorry, there were not a whole lot of them that were impactful. And there's 1 sack came when the quarterback scrambled and gave himself up. So it's 9 tackles. It's one of those performances that looks a lot better on the stat sheet than it actually was. But again, this is the second year for a 3rd-round pick. If it's any close, if there's any debate between him and Miller, you're going to stick with the guy who was your 3rd-round pick just 2 years ago. Good's a nice player. The Dolphins just have too many edge guys. I'll give you another one. Garrett Nelson. Every time I've seen him, the guy makes things happen. But again, the Dolphins have too many bodies at outside linebacker. And I'm of the opinion, or among the edge defenders, I'm of the opinion if the Dolphins could find a trade partner for Emmanuel Ogbah, that's something that they should explore as well. Because right now he's a depth player.
2 undrafted players that will make the team. They are.
I don't know if there are 2 of them.
Brendan Peely.
Well, there's no slam dunk, but your leading candidates to me was Brandon Peely. And again, it's as much based on what the composition of the roster and what he's shown. I'd put Chris Brooks in there. I'd put Aubrey Miller Jr. in there.
Oh, so now you got Miller in there. Okay, so
as those having the best chance among the UDFAs. Oh, I don't think there's a UDFA where I'm telling you that guy has to be on the team. There hasn't been that one guy. Like usually there's 1 or 2 every year.
Peely's making it.
I would think so.
Peely's the last tackle. I like him. I think he's done enough to prove that he's got something there, dude, that he can play, and he's young, man. These kind of cats, they take a while to develop, actually. But speaking of linemen, by the way, defensive tackles are also project-type players that you must invest, unless you drafted the guy top 5, 8 in the first round because you knew he was a monster tearing people up, and he's what is he, Washington from Fast Times at Richmond High or some shit.
Charles Jefferson,
right. Jefferson just blowing people up. Okay, we got to take him number 1 or 5. But a lot of times, like Paul Soliai was nothing for 2 years, bro. Like he wasn't even registering 2 on the Richter scale. And then all of a sudden in years 3, he started to really come around. In year 4, he exploded, dude. And he became a really good player at that point. But it took him a couple of years, and like that happens with a lot of defensive tackles. So Peely might be one of those guys that you kind of slow walk him a little bit and bring him along. I like him. I like it. And I like your idea of Brooks being the other guy.
I like the kid a lot. He has shown me something every time I say I have not seen one play where it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he runs hard. He's got size.
Yeah. Are you expecting Tua to play? Because now a lot of people think he'll get a little bit here and then next week.
No, and then we asked McDaniel, and he completely tap danced around the question. And it's not. So what?
He loves to mess with us, bro. Come on.
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. No, and it's not because I know some people are suggesting, well, Armstead's not playing, so Tua can't play. Well, guess what? Tua played 2 games last preseason, and Armstead played none. So that's not a major factor. Waddle's not playing. And
they like Kendall Lamb, so I'm sure they'll we're fine with Kendall Lamb going for it and sitting in there and
no, but do you really need to see him in there more than one game?
I don't think so. I don't think he really needs. I think the third game, play him for a couple series in the first quarter into the second quarter. I don't even go to the third quarter in that third game. I'd play him some of the half, and that's it, and get him the hell out next week.
Completely agree.
I don't think you need to see that much. I think they know what the hell they're doing. I think it's got you. The only reason I think you need it more for the linemen and their continuity and their confidence as a unit to go out there. So for me personally, it's not more for Tua or Tyreek or Waddle. It's more for those 5 guys to get a little rhythm before that first game, because Ron is already going to start now the season without really a lot of, so that first quarter for him is going to be an adjustment as it is. You know what I'm saying? So, the man has to adjust there. So that's the only reason I think they do it. It's just to have the starting quarterback getting the starting snap, and people don't realize that there's a difference from one quarterback to another. So that whole thing, that whole flow, at least get it going for a half or something in that final game. But it's more about that, not about the big guys.
No, I'm on board with start the offensive line, the first offensive line tomorrow afternoon,
Yes.
Saturday afternoon, and then get your full, whoever's healthy, obviously your frontline guys, that third preseason game, only for a little bit, get them like a couple of series, and then get them the hell out of there. Yeah,
no, I'm with you there. What do you got going on SI so folks can check you out, my brother?
Oh, no, we have a bunch of things on. On Thursday, I wrote about Tua. Omar wrote a column about 10 things we've learned since the Dolphins started training camp. I did 10 players to watch for the second preseason game, guys with a lot at stake for either roster spots or increased roles. And I got a mailbag before the game going up on this Saturday, and then a boatload of game coverage on alldolphins.com.
Check it out. Follow him on Twitter at Poupart NFL. Alan, as always, thank you, my brother. Enjoy the football and the football, right? You should be watching a little InterMiami. There's a cup on the line tomorrow night. All right.
Good luck to InterMiami. Good luck to InterMiami.
Are you really Canadian? Because you don't like Robbie Robertson and soccer?
It's not that I don't like Robbie Robertson. I'm not familiar with his music. My brother was a big band fan. Fan of the band. Me, I wasn't familiar with their music, and no, I can't stand. I don't like soccer. Sorry. And no, because before you even go there, it's not because I don't understand the game. I understand the game fully well. But I grew up. I've gotten that before. You just don't understand the game. You can't appreciate.
Those are those soccer snobs. Those are those soccer snobs. I'm not a soccer snob. I get it, bro. Some people don't like baseball. Some people don't like hockey. Some people don't like soccer. Some people don't like boxing. Some people don't like MMA. Some people don't like basketball. By the way, I see people all the time that I don't give a shit about basketball, and so it happens.
Yeah. I grew up with hockey, which is really, really fast, and then for me, soccer just not enough happens. Understanding that it's more difficult to make things happen, obviously.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think I've ever asked you this. Rodriguez or Duclair? Who would you rather have? Are you happy with that exchange?
Oh, yes. I am happy with that exchange.
Oh, then that's it. It's official. Canadian made it. All right. Have a great weekend, my brother. Enjoy the football.
Yes, sir.
And call my friends at ejdconstruction.com.
You've been listening to the ejdconstruction.com Miami Dolphins Report with Sports Illustrated's Alain Poupart. For additions, home remodeling, and custom work, call Eric at 305-433-4843. ejdconstruction.com is your custom home builder and general contractor you can trust. 305-433-4843.
This is the